Hey everybody, welcome inside the briefing room. I'm John Santucci from the Washington Bureau of ABC News, joined by our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, and White House correspondent, Tara Palmieri. We've had a busy day today. You had a very exciting day, John Karl, on the shutdown and talking to Donald Trump this morning. What did he say to you in the Oval Office?
Well, this was something else. He was signing a bill on human trafficking, and a whole big crowd of folks in there. And then I asked about the shutdown, because one thing we heard his primetime address, a lot about the border wall and why he's pushing this shutdown, but very little about the shutdown itself and about the workers who are affected now. 800,000 of them not getting their paychecks, many of them due to be paid at the end of the week, won't get paid. So this is how it went.
Like you gave up on border.
Mr. President, what do you say to those federal workers, security guards, Secret Service agents, TSA agents, who are now going without pay?
I think they have been terrific. These are terrific patriots. A lot of them agree with what I'm doing, and I hope we're going to have the situation worked out. But they want security in our country, and so do I. That's all we want. We want security. We want common sense. We want security in our country.
But these people have to go without their paychecks. Some are being forced to work without pay. Some have been furloughed. These are park rangers.
They're going to get the money, and I think they're going to be happy. And I will tell you, and I say it often, many of those people that you're talking about, so humanly the way you express it, but many of those people that you talk about are on my side.
So, you know, if you remember earlier on in this process, he dismissed the federal workers, saying most of them are Democrats anyway. So different now they're patriots.
Yep, they're on my side. They support me. They understand the priorities here. But the reality is, though, John, come Friday, a lot of those people who the president says are Democrats at one point, now says are behind him, they're not going to get paid.
And we have three categories of workers here. One, you have the so-called essential workers, up to 400,000, who have to go to work anyway but won't be getting their paycheck. Then you have another,
like the people working at the White House in front of the security, they're not being paid right now.
Literally, the Secret Service. Secret Service is in that category. And then you have the people that are furloughed, won't get paid, and won't work. Eventually, both of those groups will get their back pay. But then you have the contract workers who and don't have an exact number. We're trying to get an exact number and exactly how many affected, but it's probably in the ballpark of another couple 100,000 who aren't getting paid and won't get back pay.
And the thing is, too, some people now having to get creative with jobs. We've heard of some people taking jobs driving for Uber. I saw a story from our affiliate down here, WJLA. 2 women are now opening a cheesecake business, trying to actually find a way to make ends meet. But you know, the president obviously facing a tough decision, and Tara and I were talking earlier about him having a little exchange with you about what you would do, John.
Yeah, John, what would you do?
Yeah, so, well, you know, just a little context here.
Sure, context is important.
The Democrats are now passing one by one these appropriations bills. These are appropriations bills to fund individual cabinet agencies, appropriations bills that have bipartisan support, Democrat and Republican in the House and the Senate. The idea is to pass these, try to get the Senate to pass them, and to see, will the president sign bills that have nothing to do with border security, so this is not part of the wall, or will he hold all of that hostage to the border wall? So it was, shall we say,
a fun exchange.
An interesting.
Let's play the tape. I think it's really fun.
Okay.
Let's play the tape.
So why not sign the other bills, though, so some of these workers can get paid, the government get working?
You think I should do that?
Yeah, you have.
Do you think I should do that?
Well, I mean, it's not for me to say that.
One-sided reporting. Do you think I should do that?
It's not my decision.
John, do you think I should just sign?
Well, the argument has been made that you can sign these bills that have nothing to do with border security. And I'm saying that if you sign that, these workers can start getting paid. The government can start working.
If you were in my position, you'd do that.
I'm not in your position. I'm asking you if that's something you will do.
Would you do that if you were in my position?
If
you would do that, you should never be in this position. Because you'd never get anything done. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Press. Thanks, everyone. Exit. Please exit.
So...
Testy. You got under his skin.
Are you running?
If I were in his position, he said, I would never get anything done. I have no plans to run for president. No plans whatsoever.
Right.
So but seriously, John.
I think the president John.
The president likes to do this, try to put a reporter on the spot.
And our job is to ask questions.
Our job is to ask questions, not to take positions.
Right. Totally.
So that's why, even though he asked me 5 or 6 times.
Right.
It's not for me to say whether or not I would sign those bills. I'm asking, will he consider signing bills?
And he can't say, I will open part of the government. If I open part of the government, I lose leverage in this fight, because that's the real answer to that. And you can't say, oh, wait, this is a political game we're playing right now, and I'm not about to back out.
So before I let John go, 'cause I know you got to get back to the White House, but we just got an update actually from our team over there. Justin Fischel, who runs our White House units, reporting that Chuck Schumer just went to cameras outside of the West Exec lobby. We're actually seeing it right now, and he said that Trump just got up and walked out of the meeting after he asked Pelosi if she would support the wall. She said no, and according to Schumer right there at the microphones, John, he walked out, the president. That is pretty stunning in these negotiations.
These. Let's be clear. There have been no negotiations.
Right.
There have been some conversations, some talks. There have been no negotiations.
And that really gets down to it, Tara, because we've all been saying, when will we actually make a deal here? But more and more we've been reporting is that the president's considering a national emergency because he really just does not see a path to a deal here. He doesn't want to back down off that number.
Right, he doesn't want to lose. He's looking for a backdoor, any sort of pot of money he can use. He doesn't want to lose to Democrats. He'd rather lose to some obscure judge that his supporters won't remember. And what they will remember is that he stood tough and fought against the Democrats. And it might not be a point, but it's, to his supporters, he seems that he's taking a stand.
And I just want to direct our viewers to what we're showing on screen right now. The president actually just tweeted, guys, can we throw that back up? He just said, just left a meeting with Chuck and Nancy, a total waste of time. I asked, what is going to happen in 30 days if I quickly open things up? Are you going to approve border security, which includes wall or steel barrier? Nancy said no. I said bye-bye. Nothing else works. I never thought I would be quoting the president saying bye-bye, but he learns something new every day.
But we have this situation where the Democrats, and Pelosi has been explicit about this. She says the wall is immoral. She will not support anything. She was even joking, asked, what about $1? Nothing for the wall. So I mean, she's been steadfast on this. You might ask, what if there were a huge deal? What if the president was offering amnesty for the 11 million undocumented
we've been hearing that.
People living in the United States? No. Nothing. She has said nothing. And then on the other side, the president has been single-minded on the wall. And I don't see any movement whatsoever.
No, none whatsoever.
Anywhere. And now the president's literally walked out of a meeting at the White House.
Well, this is a meeting he says can fix it all. He did say, I could solve this with Chuck and Nancy in 20 minutes. And if this is how this meeting is going to go, I can't imagine there'll be another one on the books tomorrow. And he doesn't give any power to Pence. And if you just have congressional staffers talking, it means we're basically back to where we were 20 days ago.
And our team in the control room actually just tells me we have some sound from Nancy Pelosi after that meeting. Let's take a listen to that.
It's cold out here, and the temperature wasn't much warmer in the Situation Room. Our meeting did not last long, but it is so sad that in a matter of hours or just a few days, many federal workers will not be receiving their paychecks, and what that means in their lives is tragic in terms of their credit rating, paying their mortgage, paying their rent, paying their car payment, paying their children's tuition, and the rest. The president seems to be insensitive to that. He thinks maybe they could just ask their father for more money, but they can't. And we think that the collateral damage that he is causing well, I'm going to yield to the leader to talk about that, but I would say this. If you don't understand financial insecurity, then you would have a policy that takes pride in saying, I'm going to keep government shut down for months or years, unless you totally agree to my position. I yield to the leader.
And we're coming right back to what was said just a couple days ago, that frankly none of us really thought we'd be there. Maybe we are now, that the president is serious keeping the government shut down for months. Would that be something else? Wait, actually, sorry, John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the vice president's actually now at the microphones. Let's listen to that.
Seen before,
that's new too. Wow.
You okay? He's waiting. Thank you for waiting. Tell me when. Thank you, sir.
Thanks again for waiting. Thank you, sir. You bet. You bet.
This is a very short meeting.
Never seen the Vice President of the United States, any Vice President of the United States, come to the stakeout. This is where people go after they've had a meeting at the White House.
Oh, here he is right now. Let's listen in.
We'll make a few brief remarks and then happy to answer a few questions. We just ended a very short meeting in the Situation Room. The President invited the Republican and Democratic leadership here to Capitol Hill because we are facing not only a partial government shutdown, but we are also facing a humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. This past week, the President and I and these leaders met on 2 separate occasions. All those in the room directed staff to spend the entire weekend working over proposals. At the President's direction, we incorporated Democrat ideas and language in our proposal and made an offer to resolve this impasse and address the crisis at our southern border. And today, in this brief meeting, we heard once again that Democratic leaders are unwilling to even negotiate to resolve this partial government shutdown or address the crisis at our southern border. They demanded once again that before any negotiations could begin, that we would have to agree to reopen the government. And the President called the question in the meeting. He asked Speaker Pelosi that if he opened things up quickly, if he reopened the government quickly, would she be willing to agree to funding for a wall or a barrier on the southern border? And when she said no, the President said goodbye. Now, I know there's been millions of Americans, hundreds of thousands of federal workers that are as disappointed as we are that the Democrats are unwilling to engage in good faith negotiations. Look, the American people know we face a serious humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. And this President, our entire administration, working with these Republican leaders, is going to continue to drive forward to bring about the kind of reforms that will see to the safety and security of the American people. But what the President made clear today is he is going to stand firm to achieve his priorities, to build a wall, a steel barrier on the southern border, add additional personnel, additional resources, additional reforms to stem the crisis that we face on our southern border. And we're very grateful for these Republican leaders here and others that were gathered with us for their support.
I want to clarify a few things.
We're just watching this right now.
Kevin
A
McCarthy.
really historic moment that we're listening to Kevin McCarthy right now as we're coming back on. You're watching ABC News. This is the briefing room. And we're just watching this all play out right now. Vice President Mike Pence, a rare moment coming out, speaking to microphones. We saw House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer as well. And I think we should, guys, let's just go back. Let's listen to McCarthy a little bit.
He even spoke last night saying in 45 minutes, he says, but I think we could do it in 10. I want to turn the floor over, the President said, to Speaker Pelosi and Schumer. Tell us what offer you have, because we all had in our hands, from the weekend's work of the Vice President, and every office had staff there, about where we were. The different offers, the increases of the work that you've done to secure this border. So we turned to Speaker Pelosi. She began to argue whether we even have a crisis or whether facts are true. Turned to Schumer again, who said we just have to open the government up. The President would go back and forth in a negotiation in a very respectful way. I saw Schumer continue to raise his voice. The President then turned to the Speaker and politely asked her, okay, Nancy, if we open the government up in 30 days, could we have border security? She raised her hand and said, no, not at all. The President calmly said, I guess you're still not wanting to deal with the problem. The President wants to solve this problem. That's why he continues to bring us down. That's why he's put offers on the table. Not once have the Democrats offered anything back. The entire time I've been in these meetings, they want to just argue so people can present a fact. They want to argue and debate whether what comes across the southern border. People are hurting. And as I've said before, I will work with anyone that wants to move America forward and wants to secure our border. This is the goal that everybody in that room, every Democrat said in that room, they're for border security. But you ask me, what American believes border security does not have some form of a barrier? It's only the Democrats sitting in that room have I ever found. And the way they have displayed and their behavior is embarrassing to me. And the way to come out to this floor and talk about a meeting in a manner that did not take place in there is disturbing to me. I want to solve this problem. People are hurting, so I tell the Democrats, get back into the room. Let's not leave. Let's solve this problem. Just as the president said, it doesn't even take 45 minutes. We're here and we want to work.
Does not want to talk.
And we're just watching here now. We have Senator Thune coming up. Let's listen into him.
We all came to this meeting. I heard the president say last night that this could be solved in 45 minutes. And I had hoped coming to this meeting today that that's what was going to happen. That we were going to sit down and the Democrats were going to negotiate in good faith and we were going to come up with a resolution. And they obviously had not moved an inch and haven't moved an inch. I mean, they've accused the president of not being willing to negotiate, but the president's been more than willing to negotiate. He's had the vice president here the last 2 weekends, meeting with members of staff, trying to move the ball down the field and get us on a path where we can get a solution. And the answer today to the president's question, and that is exactly how it was phrased, and that is that Speaker Pelosi, if I were to open up the government today, 30 days from now, would you support any funding for border security, for a wall? And she said no. And I think the president clearly interpreted that, as he rightly should have, as clear evidence the Democrats have no interest right now in trying to solve this problem. They clearly want the political issue.
Mr. Vice President, where do you go from here?
Well, first of all, I thought the president was very calm in trying to continue to put different options on the table to solve this serious crisis at our border. Last night he laid out some of the problems and challenges that we're facing as a country and how we can get a solution. Today what he did was start to offer some more ideas. And look, our teams worked over the weekend, and we can talk about terms all day long, but at some point the other side has to put a counteroffer on the table. No is not a valid answer if you're serious about solving this problem. And so as the president started off laying out not why he wants $5.7 billion, but why the experts who are tasked with securing our nation have said it's going to take $5.7 billion.
So a couple of points here. One, you probably noticed that John Thune looked slightly reluctant to come to the the microphones. As the majority whip, the Republican whip in the Senate, he knows that there are an increasing number of Republican senators that are uncomfortable with this impasse, that think that Congress should go ahead and pass those appropriations bills and fight separately on the issue of border security
and John, just
and the wall.
to update people, I mean, where are we right now in the numbers in the Senate? We saw Murkowski overnight.
We have at least 4 Republicans in the Senate that have suggested that they would go forward right now and vote to reopen the government and then continue the fight on border security after the government reopens. And those are the ones that have come out publicly. If you were to do a private poll, it would be a significantly higher number. The other point is the president has suggested that he is considering the idea of a national emergency in an effort, as Tara was talking about, to fund the border wall without congressional approval, something that would be certainly challenged in the courts. Now, today in the Oval Office, the president was also asked what would be the threshold for him to make that decision. And what he said was that if I cannot get a deal, that is the threshold. The threshold for declaring a national emergency in this country is if he cannot get a deal with the Democrats.
And it sounds like he can't. And they've been laying the groundwork for the past few days to declare this emergency. I mean, they've had the agencies ready to go in case that they decide to do this. This is the real thing. This isn't just a threat.
And I'll tell you, I think that's going to be a challenge in the courts because a political impasse is not a national emergency.
And that's just it. We've been reporting over the last couple of days that he's been asking his lawyers, others, is this possible? Would it be something that I would face as a challenge in the courts? They're hearing yes, but that's not stopping the president or his advisors, Tara, from backing off this notion.
They think he could win politically by making it a court challenge rather than a challenge with Congress. And he is being pressured by his conservative allies. He needs to get out of this. He's losing Republicans every day, like you said, and there really is no end in sight.
And the national emergency question is something, there's no question that the president is being egged on to do that by some in his base, conservative commentators, all of that. But there are also conservatives who argue that this is an abuse of executive power. And, kind of traditional small government conservatives, the idea of the president saying, I'm going to do it on my own, is something that doesn't sit well with all conservatives.
I do just want to dip right back to the White House quickly, because Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is apparently at the microphones. Let's hear what she's saying.
With an offer that would secure the ports of entry by checking every single vehicle for drugs, but the criminals also come between ports of entry. It's not an or, it's an and. We need security at the ports of entry, and we need security between the ports of entry. So I will let you take questions, sir, but this is a crisis. It's up to the United States Congress to do their job, to take the leadership that the Vice President and President are taking, and fix this on behalf of all Americans.
Please, I can't hear you.
You said at the beginning that the President is standing firm on his demands for this border wall. How is that compromised in this context? And what are you going to say to, 800,000 federal workers not getting their first paychecks this Friday, TSA workers, Secret Service agents, people whose job it is to protect people? What do you say to them this week as we're going into 20 days of the shutdown?
Well, I'd say to every American that this president and this administration takes very seriously our solemn obligation to do what's necessary to protect the American people and uphold our laws. The offer that we put at the president's direction on the table, the offer that was in front of Democrat leaders again today in the Situation Room, represents a combination of approaches. Certainly there's the president's wall, a steel barrier on the southern border, that the president's put his number on the table. But we've also added additional resources for personnel, additional reforms, humanitarian assistance, changes in our asylum laws, some of which was informed by our earlier discussions with Democrat leaders. We've been working in good faith over the last 3 weeks to resolve not just this partial government shutdown, but to address what is an undeniable crisis at our southern border. Even the Washington Post called it a bona fide emergency. We have 60,000 people a month being apprehended at our borders, and 2/3 of them are now families and unaccompanied minors. That's not a situation that our Border Patrol system was ever designed to deal with. And so we need reforms, we need changes, we need a wall, a physical barrier. But what I think would have to be distressing to 800,000 federal workers and to tens of millions of Americans is the answer in all of this from the Democrats is we will not negotiate.
And we've been listening to Vice President Mike Pence, joined by congressional Republicans outside the White House. They just wrapped up a meeting with House and Senate Democrats where President Trump walked out after responding to a question from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi about a border wall. The president asking if he, apparently, according to what we're hearing from the members, if the president had opened the government, would the speaker be willing to pass some sort of form of legislation that would allow for a border wall? Mrs. Pelosi said no, and that's when the president, according to his tweet, said bye-bye and left. That's a quote, by the way. You're joining us inside the Washington Bureau of ABC News. I'm John Santucci, alongside White House correspondent Tara Palmieri. I do want to bring in, Tara, our friend Catherine Falder's up on Capitol Hill, because she's been watching this extraordinary afternoon with us. Catherine, you've been up there. The president and Mike Pence were, before in that meeting, they were up in your neck of the woods. What is the vibe up there? Republicans are saying they're all in lockstep, but as John Carl was just talking about here with us, that really does not seem to be the case.
No, it does not. And actually, his mood up here earlier, it seems, was much more jubilant than obviously what we're seeing at the White House stakeout right now. So his message up here with Senate Republicans, he was trying to shore up support and keep those Senate Republicans on board. As John was talking about, there are 4 of them who say, let's just vote on these bills and discuss government funding later. Well, I actually asked the president about that. He told me I was making things up. He said that actually the Republican support up here is tremendous and unwavering, but I have to say, right when that tweet came out, many reporters just sprinted behind me because they're looking to catch Pelosi once she arrives here. She's been talking upon arrival. So look, it's at a standstill. What happens next? It's clearly uncertain. And what you say about the national emergency, too, I think it's important because what we're hearing from Republicans, from Senate Republicans in that lunch up here, they said that the idea of a national emergency came came up now. Now it was just discussed. There wasn't. It was brought up very briefly. The president didn't say he would move forward on it at all. But that now, with his tweet, seems like a very real possibility. We know the lawyers, though, at least as of last night, we're still trying to work this out.
How do the Democrats think they're doing politically in this fight? How do they think the Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer response played?
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats who we're talking to up here, Pelosi and Schumer, look, they feel united. They're not willing to budge. They think they have the upper hand here. And as you heard Republicans say at the stakeout, there hasn't been a counteroffer. So it's unclear what exactly they would offer. Now, Pelosi said earlier that she didn't want to make any counteroffer, didn't want to say what she would agree to until she has something in writing from the White House. Tara.
All right, Catherine Folger's up on Capitol Hill. Catherine, thank you. I do want to go to ABC's David Curley, because we've been talking about the shutdown and the impacts. And one of the things that we've been focusing on, David, the last couple of days, you and your team, has been the effects on the TSA and on airports. We've seen people tweeting those images, the long lines, they're growing. But, you know, you sent a note around to us around the news division today, David, breaking down what the short-term and long-term effects here. So we're about to get to Friday. Where are we right now on that scale?
So there have been an increase of call-outs, and that means people calling in sick, basically, TSOs, transportation safety officers. The TSA says that's been about a 1% increase over the last couple of days from what it was a year ago. The question is, why are those people calling in sick? Are they making a political statement, or are they trying to go find another job? And so for the short term, the real concern here is that the paycheck needs to be processed starting on Friday so they get paid on Tuesday. If that doesn't happen, this will be the first paycheck that the TSA officers are going to miss. Now, these are not highly paid people. The average salaries are mid-30s. Mid-30s, 35, 36, 37,000. So these are people who really can't afford to go without a paycheck for very long. Right. And so the fear is, along a lot of folks in the airport security business, is that if Friday comes and goes without some kind of end of the shutdown, that a lot of these TSA officers may actually quit. And we're in a full employment economy. They may go get other jobs just because the government won't pay them for the work they're being asked to do. So the short term is that we're going to see longer lines because TSA will not lower the security protocols. So if you don't have as many officers and you maintain the security level that you're at, you're going to see longer lines. The longer term problem becomes once you do finally fund the government, how do you backfill in for all those jobs that potentially people quit and left for when you're not training right now because you don't have the funding to train now. So you're left with this big gully, this big gap of officers. And so you could have those long lines long after the shutdown ends. It's the very concerning problem for those in the security business. We can talk about flight operations and the FAA, but the security is what concerns. I talked to a couple of former administrators of the TSA, and they're very concerned that this actual scenario could happen starting this weekend, and it could spin up very quickly where you don't have enough officers to run it the way you want to run it, and the flying public will be in line for a long time.
David, do you know anything about how long it takes to train a TSA officer?
To get them actually going, it can take up to 9 months. It takes several months. First of all, when somebody applies, you have to vet them. You have to do a background check, make sure they're okay. Then you send them to the academy in Georgia where they take their classes. Then you got to put them on the job and actually watch them do the job. So it takes quite a while. This is not going to be something that's easily fixed if this does go on for weeks or months.
That's going to be something to watch. Well, David Curley, you and the team, we know you're going to be all over it. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Coming back inside the briefing room now. Before we leave you, Tara, the other story we've been tracking today is someone may be leaving.
Right. Tell us about your latest reporting on that, John, on Rod Rosenstein.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of them leaving. It's hard to keep track. But Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, we learned overnight, sources telling ABC News, that he's expected to depart the administration in the coming weeks. This is going to be tied to the incoming Attorney General William Barr. He's been put up by the president. He now is waiting for Senate confirmation. But Tara, as you know as well as I do, I mean, Rosenstein has been the person leading the Mueller investigation. He's been getting the reports. That's obviously changed with Sessions resigning and and Matt Whitaker be named acting Attorney General at the moment, so he's getting those updates. But Rosenstein's had a very, let's just say, fascinating 2 years on the job covering this.
He's somehow been able to shield himself from being axed, since the president has really directed his ire against Robert Mueller, who he technically oversees in the special counsel's investigation. We saw this coming for a while. The president contemplated just flat out firing him, but has held on. And it's interesting to see that in this new Congress that he appears to be ready to leave.
Yeah, and on a normal day, that would be our lead story. But
is this a sign, though, that the Mueller investigation is wrapping up if he's ready to leave?
You know, there's a lot of indications all over the map. We've thought, if you listen to Rudy Giuliani, that it'd be over by Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, or any other holiday that the mayor chose. But at the moment, we're not sure. We know the grand jury's been extended 6 more months. What does that mean exactly? We're not sure. We're kind of watching it with all of you at home and keeping you up to date. But before we leave you, just to remind you where we kind of started this crazy show. I mean, we thought this would be a nice, calm Wednesday. Damn Devin for taking a vacation. But let's put up that tweet one more time for everybody from the president. Just what he said after this fiery meeting, it sounds like, with House leaders. He's saying that he just left that meeting with Chuck and Nancy, called it a total waste of time, was asking about a border wall, and eventually, as he says right there, said bye-bye, nothing's going to work. Feels like we're going to be in a shutdown for some time. A lot of workers paying attention to Friday. You can get the latest by tuning in later tonight to ABC's World News Prime right here, whether you're watching us on Roku, Hulu, Amazon Fire TV. I'm probably forgetting something, but if you have a mobile device, you can also catch us there. And to make sure to download the ABC News app for all the latest anytime. For Tara Palmieri, I'm John Santucci. You are watching ABC News.